I would like us to move into the slideshow for today because, in fact, I've just finished one of our Neurolanguage Coach in Action courses. Olivier was with me on that course. And it's very much about how to always be the coach. It's interesting because more and more coaching and education is becoming a question. And a lot of the time it's about what can we add, what little bits can we bring in, what can we use from the coaching. For me, it's about us always being the coach. It's about that transformation of the way we communicate, the way we think, the way we come into that metacognition, and we bring the metacognition to the learner as well. So, just a quick introduction. I know that there's many neurolanguage coaches here, but there are some who are not neurolanguage coaches. What is neurolanguage coaching? Well, it is that blend of the neuros, the teaching, the coaching coming together. Now, within the neuro, I'm going to also add neuropsychology, neuroeducation. I'm going to add emotional intelligence, all of that sensitivity and knowledge that we know about how we learn, how we react, how we function. And just a quick intro to what we're bringing in from the coaching and what we're bringing in from the neuro. Definitely, we are bringing in professional coaching training with the ICF credits. We're understanding how to modify the way we communicate. We're introducing deeper sensitivity as a coach. We're bringing the structure from coaching and, of course, the spirit. No judgment, accompanying, empowering. And from the neuro, we are integrating all of the research in the process, and we're going to be looking a little bit at that. Speaking in a different way with the learner, we're going to share with the learner about the brain. We're bringing the mirror to the learner as well, the metacognition. And we're really adapting to all individuals. Now, obviously, if you've got a group of 12, 20, 30 kiddies in the classroom, it's very difficult to adapt. However, we're starting to dialogue more with the learners. I always say, your answers will come from the learners, not from me, by the way. So, let's simplify this a little bit, because language learning, any learning really, is a front to back, back to front flow. Prefrontal cortex, here we have the working memory, short-term memory. This is where we are inputting first port of call, elaborating the information, working with it. And little by little, it's going into that longer-term memory. Language fluency is here in the cerebellum at the back. So when we're producing language, also, there is this back to front, because we're bringing it into that working space. So any type of language learning or language speaking or anything to do with that process needs the brain to be very calm, quiet, and able to connect freely, front to back to front, with that flow. Now, we know that many times we get blocked, and my very simple explanation is, in the midbrain, we have the amygdala, the emotional trigger, if you like, the one that's sending the signals to the hypothalamus to create that fight or flight state. So imagine we've got this front to back flow, and then suddenly something emotionally upsets us. That gateway in the midbrain is going to block the flow. And that's often what happens. We all know when we stutter, when we can't think of anything, when we go blank, we know the sensation. So language learning is very emotional. thing to learn. It's a very emotional process that if we don't have that calm, then we're going to have a learner who has problems. So we're trying to get them into what I call the perfect learning state. Now, we're trying to avoid these emotional triggers. How many of you would agree that most of your learners have nightmares from school relating to grammar? I think most of us, even we, have grammar nightmares from school. And in some ways, we're trying to totally avoid any connection to language learning from the past. If you've got adult learners, we're trying to get them into a new process. And if you've got kids, we're trying not to create that trauma. We're trying to make it fun, curiosity arousing. We're really trying to stimulate them to enjoy it. And if you're working with kiddies, we're trying to avoid bad learning memories. If you're working with adults, we need to help them to move beyond the bad learning memories. So everything is about not only managing language learning, but also managing their state. Now, another thing that can trigger the amygdala is uncertainty. Uncertainty in a learning process is going to cause that emotional havoc. And when we think about uncertainty in a language learning process, firstly, we need to understand that, learning a second language per se is an uncertain process. Firstly, where does our native language learning end? We will never go to the grave knowing fully our native language. So where does target language end? We really are dealing with an uncertain process. And for everybody, it's different. Every learner will be thinking, when am I going to be fluent? When am I going to be able to speak? When will I be able to communicate? When will I be able to deal with situations where I'm feeling nervous? So it's full of uncertainty. Again, the question for us is, how do we keep them calm? Now, one of the ways that we do it is through constant signposting, telling them this is what we're going to do, this is where we're going to go, this is where we're going to direct the focus and attention of the brain. We're going to explain about the learning process. We're going to bring them key goals to work on. So we're saying, we're going to work on this. Once you've got this, then we'll move on. And we're going to explain about the brain, about the neuroscience, and really bring them into this framework and schedule. But at the same time, when we're working with them, we also go into that spontaneity. And this is where I said earlier, this is the challenge for us, to really remain in that coaching space all the time. So if we are the bridge to that teaching, coaching, facilitating, provoking, provocative space, we also have to bear in mind that coaching is very non-directive. Now, can I share with all of you, there is some research from a gentleman called Gorka Bartolome from the University of Lerida from last year. And Gorka was actually speaking at our conference in Sitges last March, and he will be in our conference in March for those of you who are coming. And in this research, he really did check the impact of non-directive coaching on a learner's or a coachee's brain. And what this research proved is that non-directive coaching impacts creativity and the, let's say, production of insights. It stimulates learners incredibly. And that's what we're doing when we go into that non-directive coaching. It has an impact on learners' brains. So we're moving away from being directive. And this really does mean that we change the way that we communicate consciously. I think one of the major challenges for all of us today is to make conscious what we do subconsciously. So when we are in our subconscious behaviors, when we're talking, we often don't realize what we are saying. And this is where we have to become fully conscious that everything that we say has an impact on the learner. Everything. We know now that non-directive provokes creativity as well. We also know that to help our learners keep calm, we need to break it down. This is another important question for language learning, because language is immense. Now, I put my hands up, everybody, 15, 20 years ago, when I was running around doing all of my training sessions. I never, ever thought about the fact that there's so much when you come into a language lesson. And most of the time, our focus was all over the place. I would go in with the intention of, okay, today we're going to do this. But then we ended up doing this. Now, what we need to do is we need to bring in much more focus. And we need to get them much more focused. We need to break it down. From the book from the 1950s, Miller actually introduced this chunking down concept. But now we know from the research that actually that is how the brain functions best, when we really break it down. So we're going to be looking today at how we break grammar down, and then how we build it back up in bite-sized chunks. And we need to understand, we need to become experts at that. Because you, in that conversation, are the guide and the facilitator. If we are not clear where we're going in that conversation, we're going to lose them. We're going to lose ourselves, like we did in the past, like I did in the past. So it really is about focus and attention and having a pathway, being very certain of that pathway. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is our brain is a connection machine. It really does connect and make connections. We need to understand that the brain is trying to connect to previous knowledge. It's trying to scaffold. Now, one caveat here, everybody. In those early years between 0 and 7, kiddies do not have that capacity because they are still developing this prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex starts developing from the age of 7 or 8 onwards. So under the age of 7, it's not so much the brain scaffolding, but from the age of 7 or 8 onwards, that's when we're creating this facility. It's almost like, if you think about it, in those first 7 years, our brain is filling up with data. And from the age of 7 or 8 onwards, our brain starts to get a little bit more clever, and it starts to say, okay, is the new data fitting with existing data? And if it is, then I'm going to put it over there. I'm going to save time and energy and fuel. So we have to also become provocateurs. We have to also become facilitators to help our learners scaffold. This is very important. We know from the research, and I'm going to show you the research in a minute, when we learn a new language, the brain is going to the areas of the mother tongue to see if it connects with that knowledge. Now, I often get questions. Well, I actually get people who go into panic because we all come from this background of no native language in the classroom. Can I share with all of you, I do think actually this comes from Mr. Berlitz. For those of you who know Berlitz, started in 1890s, I believe. Mr. Berlitz was a French teacher, and he became ill, and he had to substitute his lessons with a French native who couldn't speak English. And this French native was in his class as a substitute for about 3 weeks. And obviously could not speak English to this group of learners. And when Mr. Berlitz came back from his sick leave, his learners had actually learned more than they had with him. So apparently this was that stimulus for him to think, okay, no native language in the classroom. Now, on the one side, I fully agree with that because it's subconscious input. On the other side, if you've got a very nervous learner, it may shut them down. And also, it's not following the scaffolding principle of the brain. So it's almost like they're not connecting in the two languages. Now, let me give you an example. I learned Spanish through knowing French and Latin and picking up my father's Spanish books. And I taught myself Spanish just by making connections. Now, by making connections, I started to see the patterns of both languages. And when you start to see the patterns, you start to understand, okay, this works here, but it doesn't work here. Okay, this goes here, but this doesn't work. Oh, this is the same, this isn't. And that's what we need to start provoking with our learners, because if they can do it by themselves, they start to pattern by themselves and they start to learn faster. So I'm not saying that we should be speaking native all the time in the session. What I'm saying is we should be asking provoking questions. How is this in your language? How is it different? Let's talk about it. Because the brain really does care. Now, I even sit with people and we look at languages like Japanese, Arabic, Chinese, and again, we still ask the question, how do you do this in Chinese? How do you do this in Arabic? And what comes from that is this curiosity-driven conversation, because I'm really fascinated how your brain processes that language, and how I can help you then to process the English. If something doesn't exist in your language, how can I help you to understand this? Because it's new for your brain. Whereas if it's something similar in your language, then we've got a bridge to connect to. So all the way through the learning process, we're going to be provoking. Now, brain-friendly grammar is a two-step process. The first step, we need to sit down and create the script, breaking down the grammar. The second step, we then use the script as our script for the conversation, for the brain-friendly grammar conversation using PACT PQC. And may I say that it's not only for grammar, but also for non-grammar. So how do we create the script? I say this many, many times, you know, I love all the grammar books that are out there in the world. Murphy was my Bible, probably always will be my Bible. The only problem is that many of the grammar books that we have, the points are very disjointed. And there's nothing that brings them together and joins the dots. So if you think about the present as a big picture, you've got so many topics in there. But if I say to you, what is the big picture of the present? What is encompassed? What does it comprise of? You would probably just say to me, oh, present simple, present continuous in English. And that would be it. But actually, no, there's a lot more. And if we go into the other languages, we need to then think about subjunctive, present subjunctive. We need to think about, in the Latin families, the different families. AR, ER, IR for Spanish. French has families, Italian has families. And then the roots and the irregulars. So in that topic of the present, there is a world that we can literally sit down and break down. I always think all of you have so much knowledge of language. All of you could just sit down and create these breakdowns. It just needs that moment of breaking it down, brainstorming it. Once you've done it, you've got it forever. So we need to start asking ourselves big pictures. Prepositions, what's the big picture? Adjectives, what's the big picture? Passive tense, what's the big picture? Any topic, phrasal verbs, conditionals. You can literally sit down and say, right, what's in this? Can I say as well that once you do that, you bring in certainty for you. Because you know, top to bottom, that's everything in this topic. And what you will then do is be much more capable of bringing the certainty to the learner. Step by step by step, building it up. And instead of doing a whole topic in one day, we break it down. We break it down. And believe me, the way that we do it, they get it instantly. So instead of having to do this 3,000 times, they will get it once. We've had people say to us, in 10 years of learning English, finally, I understand the present perfect. That's the effect you want, that they get it instantly. So, breaking it down. I'm just moving my picture of all of you up. This is a little breakdown of the past continuous. Now, can I just say, in this breakdown, it's about creating a script. It's not about creating content. So many people get this confused. This is not about content. You can all go away, you know the content here, or you can go away and create your little notes of what you're going to bring as content. What we're doing is we are creating a framework and script and a pathway through the conversation. So every step of the way here is my pathway through the PACT PQC conversation. I go into the formation, I break it down. I go into the uses, I break them down. I go into the trigger words, the adverbs of time, indicating where I am. And then I'm going to think, okay, are there any additional questions here to cover with this past continuous? No content, just a step by step guide through that conversation. After you've got this, then you can think about, what examples do I need? What do I need to refresh so that I'm clear on what I'm saying here? And by the way, I always follow this pattern with any tense with the learners, because then they get used to this pattern. Then they start patterning themselves. How do I form it? How do I use it? How do I form it? How do I use it? Everything is about helping the brain to pattern. And if you will allow me just 2 minutes of saying that in the brain-friendly grammar book, you have a whole load of scripts or breakdowns for all topics. So again, it's not about content, it's about the pathway through the conversation. And by the way, you may choose a different pathway, that's fine. And if you're doing it in French, Olivier, I know you're doing it in French. If you're doing it in Spanish, Russian, Polish, whatever, you can use these as models of how to then adapt it to your languages with those extra nuances that you need. So literally, it takes time to sit down and create them, but once you've got them, you've really got them forever. And may I suggest that once you've done these about 4, 5, 6 times, you will remember. I can sit down and just do any of these because I've done them so many times. And you'll just have this, like driving a car, you'll be using this, driving the car, but adapting to each learner. Every single grammar conversation you have will be different, because every learner is also different. Now let's move into the PACT PQC. When I created this, I confess, I hadn't realized how much it really does create a very smooth, interactive, calm conversation. It really does keep grammar on a normalized level. It also makes the coachee aware that they can ask you anything. It doesn't matter if they don't understand, let's talk it through. Let's dialogue it, let's break it down together. Let's find out how I can get you to understand, or how I can get you to connect with your language, or creating new neural connections. At the same time, this conversation is very provocative and stimulates. After half an hour of this conversation, normally learners are KO, they've gone, because they've been working so hard. I've had learners say to me after half an hour, Rachel, I've got a headache. Can we stop, please? And that's when you know that they're having a learning headache. By the way, learning headaches do exist. And it's really about, as we said, breaking it, frameworking it, and taking them through it step by step. Now, major differences here. And this is where, at the beginning of today, I said, we have to become conscious of how we are communicating. There are a few changes here which are quite difficult to change because we've been doing them for years and years, maybe even centuries. So the first thing we need to do is we need to stop asking questions first. We need to signpost first. Signposting is almost like you are giving a running commentary through this conversation. And you're telling the learner what you're going to do next. Now, we're going to look at the present perfect. We're going to start off and we're going to look at how we form the present perfect. And then after that, we'll go to the uses. So, bringing the focus to the formation. If we can, I'd like to start with the affirmative, the positive sentence. Da, 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 da. Okay, fantastic. We've done everything to do with the affirmative. Now we're going to turn to the formation of the question. Da, 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 da. Great. We've got the affirmative, the question. Now, may we move into looking at how we form the negative. So every step of the way, you're telling them what we're going to do next. Now, may I connect all of you back to this? This is your script. This is it. Now we're going to do the affirmative. Da, 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 da. Now we're going to do the question form. Da, da, da. So this is your, it's like being an actor. It's like being an actress. This is your script, what you're following as the way through. And you're going to keep on this script. If your learner starts saying, oh, but the past perfect, you form it like this. Brilliant that you bring that up. We'll come to that another day. May I just bring you back to present perfect? And you bring them back to the script. And when they take you away again, you bring them back to the script. That's sitting in the shoes of the coach. You're managing that conversation and you're keeping them in focus. Remember my confession when I said that years ago, I would go into this session and my session would start here and end up like this. This was the problem. So signposting is absolutely key. And can I say that signposting also will keep them calm? There's no surprises. I'm not going to spring a question on you without you knowing what that question is going to be about. That's key. You know, many times we're trained that we should go into this, I'm going to say pure eliciting, where I don't tell you what we're doing, but I'm asking you questions and I want you to imagine or notice or discover. Actually, that can make very nervous learners. I know I get very nervous when I'm in that hot seat and I don't know where the conversation is going, I start shutting down. So signposting will keep them calm, happy, and you're bringing their brain with you. You're bringing their brain with you. Every step of the way, you've got their brain focused. Now we're going there. Can I say to all of you, this is one of the hardest new habits to introduce. Because we are so used to firing out questions first. This is going to require all of you to really become metacognitive and really focus on self-observation and stopping yourself asking questions. And getting into the habit of, now we're going to do this and then ask the question. Now we're moving on and then ask the question. And by the way, when we ask the question, we're really going to ask, what do you know? So this is another problem, and I'm going to say problem in inverted commas, that we have as teachers, trainers, educators. We launch into explaining. We don't need to explain anything. The first thing we need to do is we need to find out, where is your starting point with this? If you know it, we don't need to go into it. If you don't know it, we're going to go into it. So I need to find out where you are with this. Morning, Ina. I can just see you, fantastic. Now, if the learner says, I don't know, I'm stuck, and you want to probe a little bit more, we're going to ping pong back. We're not giving up so easily. We want to stimulate them. We don't want to be giving them and spoon feeding them. We want to get them to think and stimulate curiosity. Curiosity means dopamine. And this is a conversation to involve. Coaching is about talking with. It's never, never, never about talking at. So the whole exchange should become fun. Now, the model itself, PACT PQC, I'm going to say that this can be used for any educational conversation. I've used PACT PQC to take a group of teachers through a lesson on chemistry. I'm not a chemistry teacher, but I demonstrated how to use this, talking about fluoride. And honestly, we had the most amazing exchange of information about fluoride that I know those teachers will never forget. I certainly will never forget it. So this conversation can be for grammar, but can also be for non-grammar topics. And we're going to have a look at each part of this conversation. So we've just talked about placement. And as I said, this is about a statement. And by the way, if you think about it, it's almost like putting bookends into the conversation. You're going to signpost, summarize, signpost, summarize, signpost, summarize, all the way through. Once you've done the signpost, we're then going to ask them, what do you know? What do you know about the formation of the present perfect? Amanda, yes, absolutely, like a good presentation. Yes, totally agree. You know, it really is that running commentary, like a presentation. It is in everything that we do. Now, the scaffolding here, when you ask a learner, what do you know? If they give you the information and it's fine, you don't need to stay there. You can just move on. We also need to stop wasting time. How many times do we repeat and repeat and explain and again and again? If they know it, we don't need to. So if they give you a clear answer, the present perfect, blah, 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 beautiful. Let's move on. Now, if they give you the answer, which is confused, misunderstandings, you then can start understanding where they are with this, what's missing, where do we need to fill the gaps? And then we're going to go to the T for teach. So this is an important part of the model because it's finding out where are they starting from. Now, the C for conversation, if they say to me, yes, I know it, and this is blah, 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 and they give me a great answer, I might then at that point try to push them into examples, conversation, because I want to hear if they're able to use it. Whenever we do this, we also know that the brain likes real and personal. So we're really going to try to get them into that real and personal space. If they can use it and the examples are fine, we can move on. If they're having problems, I might be tempted to then go into a bit of a coaching question like, you know, how can I help you to make it more solid? Or what do you need to get more practice here? Or how can you really consolidate this? Because I know that you know the rule, you know how to use it, but it's still sticking in this conversation. What do we need to do at this point? Now, if they don't know something, we're really going to come into this transfer of knowledge. Can we change the word teach to transfer of knowledge? But we're going to do it with a coaching style. Now, let's connect back to what we said at the beginning, non-directive. Non-directive is going to keep them calm, and it's also going to stimulate insights. So whenever we introduce new information, we're going to do it with non-directive permission questions. May I share with you? This is how we do this in English. And then I'm going to input that information. May I bring you some new information here? So this permission, this non-directive, and instantly we're going to try to get them using it. Instantly. So, may I share present perfect? We're going to use the verb to have. I have. And if we look at the regular verbs, we're going to put an ed. We're going to take the third column. I have visited. How about I give you a verb and you try it now? How about the verb dance? And let's see if they can bring it back. So we've got this instant application, this instant use, this instant involvement. And I might say to my learner, imagine I've got a Spanish learner. Beautiful, because Spanish is so corresponding. How do you do that in Spanish? Ah, very similar. He bailado. I have. A ver. Bailado, you've got the ending with the ADO, the past participle. And there I would be using the native language as a springboard. I would be bringing in this instant interaction, very smooth, getting them to use it instantly. Now, can I share with all of you that at the moment I am really fascinated with how do we get passive into active? Many of us have the problem when we're learning something, we're taking it all in, we're taking it all in, we're taking it all in. Remember, these are different neural networks. We're taking it in passively, but then to produce it are totally different neural networks. So many of us have got lots of passive information, but we can't get it out. And it's not only for language, it's for everything. So what we have to do as teachers, trainers, educators, coaches, we have to help them to instantly start using it, applying it. I want you to take it in passively, but now I want you to come and use it with me. Now, may I suggest that this means that we need to stop doing it for them. And we need to get them doing it much more. And right from the beginning, when you're bringing in new input, new knowledge, we need this interaction. And that's where the coaching space really does work, because it gets them actively using it instantly. That's what we want. So the T for teach is a T for transfer of knowledge. We're going to be introducing it with permission to keep them calm. We're going to be interacting, getting them involved. And when we're using native as a springboard wherever we can. And along the way, we're going to have these coaching questions which are the pure, how can I help? How do you feel? What can we do here? What do you need? And the other powerful questions, native target. How is this in your language? How is it different? How is it similar? Where is it different? Where is it similar? And wherever we need to, we're going to be clarifying. Am I hearing this? Is this what you're saying? Can I just check? So we have the whole process. This is the conversation, but no two conversations are going to be the same. Every conversation you have with a learner is going to be different, and it's not linear. You're going to be dancing in and out of all of these. You might go placement assessment, teach, placement assessment, powerful question, conversation, placement assessment, teach, powerful question, clarification, placement assessment. You're going to dance through this model, but you're going to dance with that learner. And every learner is going to be different. Every topic is going to be different. Everything is going to be different. Now, this also works for non-grammar. You break it down first, and then you use the coaching conversation all the way through. Now, I'm going to stop the share. I can see some beautiful faces. To all of those who are behind the cameras, welcome on a Sunday morning to a little bit of a demo. Brigida, thank you for coming on. I can see your face now. And Dominica, thank you. Gracias. And Virginia as well. I love seeing faces. Beautiful. And I've got all of the Maya, Donna, Amanda, Vanda, Anna, Cornelia, and Olivia. And Gary, I know that you're there in the background. Right. So what I would like to do, let's just touch base, everybody, that you do have the link for the certificate of attendance in the chat box. So please go to the chat box for the certificate if you would like the certificate. Now, Magda, we haven't finished. So we're going to go into demo mode. This is where we're going to go into live demo. So I'd like to do a little bit of a demo of a grammar and a little bit of a demo of a non-grammar. And I'm just thinking, can I just check in with all of you? Just give me a sign. Are you mostly all English language teachers? Give me a quick hand up, heart, whatever. Mary's saying yes in the chat box. I've got some thumbs up. Are you mostly English language teachers? Yes, yes, yes. Dominica, what do you teach? Sanella, yes. Lucian, hi, Lucian. Prisa, are you an English language teacher? Yes. Yeah. Right. Yes, yes, yes. Imen, you're a Tunisian language teacher. Dominica, business and finance, but in English or in other languages? Edward, yes. French, Spanish, Italian, English, Chinese. Virginia, yes. Olivia, French, of course. Shusha, yes. Katarina, French as well. Right. Okay. French. Tamia. Brigida, Spanish. Great. Right. So we've got a mix. What would be more useful for all of you? For me to demo something in English grammar, or for me to demonstrate out something which is in sort of other languages like Spanish, or I'm not sure if my brain would go into any other at the moment. I can do Spanish or English. English phrasal verbs. Sanella, you want more phrasal verbs? Right. Tanya, you want something in Spanish? Ooh, that's interesting. Right. Now, remember everybody that what I'm actually demonstrating is the PACT PQC more than anything else. That's the demonstration here. So, Sanella, would you like us to do phrasal verbs together? Put you on the spot now.
Sure.
Oh, right. So, Sprisa, yes, we're going to go into phrasal verbs. Now, what I'm going to do, everybody, is just on the whiteboard, I'm just going to give you a bit of a breakdown so that you can see where I'm going with this. and just forgive me while I just multitask and do this very quickly while we're preparing the way. Now, Sanilo, I know that you are a very advanced English speaker. I know that. So we're going to take it from that perspective of you being an advanced learner. And everybody in the background, what I really want is that you're focusing on the PACT PQC, the placement, the assessment, the conversation, the teaching, the powerful questions, and the clarification as well. Okay, so very quickly, I've done a little bit of a pathway here. Sanila, welcome to our session today.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. One of your goals that we had, well, you had set as one of your goals was really getting a deep dive into these phrasal verbs. How do you feel if we just start to come into this topic today?
Okay.
Great. What I'd like to do, I'd like us to explore a little bit around the phrasal verbs first. Then we're going to go into their origin, and that might give a little bit of a clue as to the way that they are created. And then we're going to go to the types, formation, and then we'll stop and sort of check in. How does that sound?
Sounds okay for me.
And just out of curiosity, how are you feeling that you've got, I'm not sure how many, but you've got many people looking at you. 72 people looking at you.
Nervous.
Okay. And everybody in the background, maybe we can get all of you doing a little bit of work. So I would like in the chat box, all of you, if you can, to put what you're hearing. Are you hearing the P, placement, A, assessment, C, conversation, T, teach, PQ, powerful question, or CL, clarification? Now, if you all do that in the background, or even if you just mentally do this, everybody, what you're going to do is start to help your subconscious to observe this conversation. Okay? And may I share as well, the power of observation cannot be underestimated. So just by observing me doing this, you're also going to be absorbing the process. So Sanela, coming back into our topic, what I'd like to just explore with you a little bit is what phrasal verbs are and where they come from. What can you tell me about that?
Well, phrasal verbs are two or more words that when they are together, they completely act as a new word. And the meaning we get from them is separate from the original words.
Excellent. Absolutely. Out of curiosity, Sanena, may I ask you if you have any idea the reason they exist?
I wouldn't know that. I don't have that information in my mind.
May I share with you a little bit about
Yes,
the
please.
history and see what you think to this? So actually it was 1066. England was invaded by the French, and they brought the French language. And we then had 4 languages in England. We had French and Latin with the upper class. And in the streets, we had the Germanic and Celtic, and they were the 4 predominant languages. And that's where we have this sort of stream of language, which is formal, French and Latin. And Celtic and Germanic in the streets became the informal. What do you think about that?
Sounds interesting.
Right. Now, may I check in, what is your mother tongue?
Bosnian.
Okay, so Can I ask if you have any phrasal verbs in Bosnian?
No, we don't have formations such as in English, and it's very difficult for us to learn because there are two separate meanings. We just learned the meanings of the separate words, and now we have words connected that don't mean that, and
yeah,
we have confusion.
So, if I may, I'd like us to just move a little bit into this formal and informal. As we said, French and the Latin, and then we've got the German and the Celtic. And I'm just going to, if I can, just demonstrate on the board here an example. We've got the formal word exhale in English. And the prefix actually does give us a clue to the preposition in the informal. Can I check in with you? What do you think to that?
Just a second, I just see exhale, breathe out.
And in the middle, you've got the X, which is the prefix. And that then is giving us the preposition.
You got me there. I have no idea.
Right. And
yeah, I just got one more letter.
Right. So what do you think to that with that clue to the preposition from that prefix?
Certainly it helps, but now it doesn't come up to my mind.
Right. So if I gave you then inhale, again, it gives a clue to the prefix. Can I check in your native language?
Okay.
Yeah. Am I hearing an insight there?
Inbreed, exbreed. No.
So the X gives me the out, the in gives me the in from the phrasal verb. If I give you another one, expose.
You're giving something out.
Exactly.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, now I got it.
Yes.
It takes some, but
yes. Fantastic. Extinguish.
Something out, right.
Right. Now, can I just come back to your native language? Do you have some prefixes in your native language that could give you a clue to some prepositions?
No. Yeah, something that it's not. We have ne, and that's something that is not.
Right, fantastic. So
unorganized or something like that. And for us, we only have ne. It's only one. We don't have e or like irregular or something like that. We have just two letters, n and e, and that means the same thing.
Right. And if you're going towards something, or if you're going in or out, is there any prefix that helps us here?
No, we only have compact words.
Okay, right. So we're going to be exploring a little bit as we go through into the common verbs and the common prepositions. We'll come back to this to see if this helps to connect a little bit more. How do you feel about that?
Okay.
Great. Now, moving a little bit into the types. And what I mean here is that sometimes we have the verbs where we understand what they mean, literally to go out. But then we have sometimes verbs that we don't understand what they mean. For example, to get on with. How do you feel about those different types there?
As I said, as I was learning phrasal verbs, they were very difficult for me.
Right.
It took me time because I didn't have something to connect to my language. I like when I learn grammar to connect that with my language. And
absolutely.
then I think comfortable.
Right, absolutely.
And I had to literally learn them by heart.
Yeah.
To know their meaning, to memorize it by heart. Nothing else. Yeah. Helped.
So, moving now into the formation, what can you tell me about how we absolutely form these?
Well, we have two words.
Mm-hmm.
One is a verb and one is a, I just lost
The
preposition.
Yes.
Preposition, yes, thank you.
Yes. And could there be more prepositions, Sanila?
Pick up, yes. Do you mean in one word, two or more?
Yes, in that phrasal verb.
Break up, pick up. I cannot remember now. Do we have something like that?
For example,
Yes.
there could be two prepositions. Get on with.
Get on well with you.
Get on with. Oh yeah, right.
Get on
Get
with.
along. Yeah.
Yes.
Get along,
And
yeah.
the one.
Get on well with.
Oh, Farhat, I think you want to interview. Do you want to jump on? I didn't hear you there. I think we had a
Get on well with.
get on well with. Yes, super.
With.
Well done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And
You are with.
Sanela, may I share another one with you?
Yes, please.
Right. And this is a really bizarre one because to look in on when you're looking in on your children when they're asleep and you go to look in on to see if they're okay. So there's some really bizarre combinations sometimes of prepositions.
Look after.
Look after is then just the traditional, just one after another. Yeah.
So that's okay. Looking on.
Yes. Yeah. How about we come into trying to brainstorm some common verbs. Now, I know there are many, many, many phrasal verbs. So how about we really bring the focus just into the common verbs and we make a list of those and then we brainstorm after that the phrasal verbs with those verbs.
Pick up.
Right. So if we look at, let's just come into a list of the common verbs. We've got pick. What else do we have as a common verb? Only the verb.
Carry.
Mm-hmm.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Get.
Catch.
Catch.
Yeah.
Watch.
Wael, thank you very much for jumping in. I'm going to let Sanela stay as my coachee because otherwise we're going to go crazy if everybody's jumping in. But thank you, thank you. Sanela, we've got watch. What else?
Break.
Yeah, now what I want are the really, really, really common ones, not the ones that there are only a couple of phrasal verbs. I mean, the ones that have got thousands of prepositions after them.
Call.
Call. Yeah, it's still not one of those really common ones.
Come.
Sorry?
Come.
Yes, fantastic. Come up, come out, come in, come over, come on, come round, come through, come down, come up. Yes, absolutely. And the opposite of come?
Leave.
Let's take go.
Let.
Go. Oh yeah, go.
Yeah.
I just want to leave.
Yeah.
We have go. Okay. But you also have go against, go ahead, go along with, go for, go on, go over. Yeah, we have go. Lots of go.
Yeah.
Let.
Yes, let could be another one.
What?
Look, another one.
Put. Do we have put?
Put could be
No.
another one. Yes. So we're just going to focus on the common ones at this point.
Okay.
Now, I'd like to move into the common prepositions. What do you think are the most common prepositions?
In and out.
Yep, absolutely. In, out,
Up.
up, opposite as well.
Down. All right.
Up, down, yep.
For maybe.
For could be. And may I share that we may also have on and off as those really common ones.
To.
To as well. Yep, could
Yeah.
be. Yep, well done. Right, now, Elena, what I would like, I'd like us to take one of those prepositions a moment. And I'd just like to show how the preposition changes the meaning of the verb. How do you feel about that?
Okay.
So I'd like us to take the preposition off. When you think of this word, what sort of meanings come to mind for you?
Oh, that something is not there.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't exist.
Yep. It could be that it doesn't exist. It could also mean that it's not on, it's off, it's not working.
Yeah, that's simple.
Absolutely. It could also mean that, you know, it's away, that's sort of like far off. Okay, fantastic. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to see if we can really create the feelings that this brings to a verb. So what I'd like to focus on first is the feeling of away. What verbs come to mind for you when you put them with off, give you that feeling of moving away or going away or leaving, if you like?
Take off.
Yes, it could be taking off. What else?
Get off.
Yes, it could be that you're moving away, get off the table, moving away from the table. Yes, absolutely. May I share one that comes to mind for me?
Yes, please.
Set off. We set
Oh,
off on journey. Could be.
nice one.
Yep. Another one could be move off the grass, move away. So how are you feeling with that first feeling that off brings to the verb?
I don't like it. It's only maybe set off because you're going on something nice, but all these things you are leaving.
Right. Okay. Well, we can bring in another dimension to this because actually off, when you bring it to a verb, can also mean to start something.
Show off, for example.
Albenita, I'm not sure if that would be to start something. That's more that feeling of demonstrating, that exposing. So let me just come back to Sanella. So Sanella, any verbs that come to mind with off when you're talking about starting something?
Would have go, stand up. No, really, not one of them.
How about if I said my alarm went off at 3 o'clock in the morning? The alarm started. It went off.
Okay.
I could also say the party got off at 3. It started, initiated. So it could be that triggering. Something starts.
So you can say start off, right?
Yeah, start off. And those of you who are in business meetings, we get the kickoff.
Yeah, kick off.
Yeah.
But these are not very common.
Right. And these now with the off, you've got that dimension of something starting. So it's that feeling of initiating. Now, Sanella, I'm going to close the conversation there because of the time. I'm going to say Thank you so much. How did it feel for you just to go through that conversation with me?
You were always there. You were reassuring. Of course, I was nervous,
Yes.
but you were keeping me calm.
Fantastic, fantastic. And thank you, because that really was an ad hoc, in the moment coaching conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now, everybody in the chat box, I just want to say thank you, because I see that all of you were really focusing in and joining in and thinking and feeling. Now, the way I confess, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, the way that I did phrasal verbs was photocopy 5,000 sheets of phrasal verbs, give them to the learner and say, here you go and learn them. Now I want to sit in this space with my learner and have this conversation and get my learner feeling them. That's what we want. Now, any questions about that conversation? I'm seeing in the chat box. Olivier, yes, we're going to get this into schools, definitely. Absolutely, we're going to get kiddies. And we've got Ed's here. So Ed is definitely one of our school teachers who's going to be bringing this in. Absolutely. Any questions, any comments? Anybody like to come on the microphone? Amanda, yes, let me just get you to unmute. There you go.
I really enjoyed watching it, Rachel. I thought it was great, you know, a really great example of the script, speaking to the script, keeping the learner on task. What's really interesting is, I think, when it's not there in their language, in their native language, and I think that's the hardest thing. It's like, okay, so what we've discovered here is we've discovered a difference. And this is what I feel really strongly, is it's this idea of, when we find the similarities, we have to embrace them. It's like, well, hey, that's so wonderful, because that's the same in our language. It's the same in your language. Brilliant. Let's have a celebration. I teach a lot of French learners, celebration, same in French and English. But then obviously when there is differences, it's much more difficult. And then that's where you need the questioning. So how can we help you find a way into this? How can we help you find a way into what is different here between English, in this case, and Bulgarian? Bosnian. And the negative of prefix was the beginning of the link, beginning of the link into it. And I, you know, it is so different. And obviously the exhale, breathe out, inhale, breathe in. I think that's based on the Latin. Is that right?
It's that formal.
So if you come from a Latin language, you can key into that. That's a really helpful avenue into that. But if you don't come from a Latin language, and I'm taking it that the Bosnian is not Latin, it's a Latin language, that's a difficulty that might add more confusion than aid the learner in this instance. I don't know. And that would be a question for Sanella to say, did that confuse you? I don't know. That's just a question. But you know, great to see it. It's great to see it in action. It's just so great to see it in action. So thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Now, a couple of things, just insights that also from what you were saying. First thing, you're absolutely right. When we know that there's a difference, it's about helping our learner to understand the reason that it's going to be maybe more challenging for them. Whereas before it was like, oh, why can't I understand this? Why am I always getting this wrong? Actually, we know because your brain has no connections here. It's like the Polish with no articles. All the Slav languages mostly don't have articles. I think Chinese doesn't either. And you know, this helping our learner to feel it's normal that you're going to have a problem with this. How can we help? And then we come into that space of compassionate teaching. Now, if I had more time with Sanela, I would actually go a bit deeper, because I know that in Slav languages, and I'm pretty sure in Ukrainian, Russian, Czech, they do have more prefixes. So I would be exploring a little bit more there if we had time and we were behind closed doors. Because one of the major problems that we have is that we've never been shown how to try to make these connections. We've never been shown to analyze our native language. I've sat with English people who have no idea how they form the present continuous. And I sit with them and say, right, how about we look at how we create the present continuous in English first, before I take it for you in Spanish? Because if I can get you to analyze how we do it in English, it's exactly the same in Spanish. But I need you to become conscious of how we do it in English first. And this lack of consciousness is what we are bringing in. Definitely. And by the way, it becomes a curiosity dopamine trip for both of us. Because I start to get more curious. I could sit here all day with all of you guys talking about languages. And by the way, I promise you all that very soon we're going to have a language jam. And we're going to get you coming on, jamming with me with your language comparisons, differences. And I'm really going to make open this space that we sit and have a language jam one Sunday morning with a coffee. Okay, so be ready in the next few weeks, because we may be programming that in. So Amanda, yes, beautiful comments there. Thank you for that. Nina, did you want to jump on?
Yes, I'm very curious about something. Oh, good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. Sorry about my internet
Yes,
connections.
yeah.
I'll be watching the replay. So, really quick question. I get all of this. My student gets all of this. And then his mother is like, what kind of teaching is this? You're supposed to have all the materials done. He's supposed to do what you tell him to do. And I'm like, no. How do I convince the mother? How do I convince the parents
Right.
that
So,
this is appropriate?
right.
Because the kid is like, oh my God, can we really do this? And I'm like, yes. And his mother's like, no, it's not supposed to work like this.
Right. And may I suggest that you could come into that sort of focusing on results
Yeah.
and asking the mother, okay, how about we test it? And in 2 weeks, you see just how much your child learns with me, as opposed to the traditional way.
Mm.
And really see if, if they would be open to focusing on the results rather than the way that they think the 200-year-old method should still be in place. Plus the fact that, we are coming into neurodiversity, and neurodiversity means that the children of today are totally different.
Yes. Yes.
And if the mother would be open to recognizing, may I ask you, how different is your child now as you were when you were a child? How much do you think the brain is different? And they're just checking in with those open questions, not, no sort of insinuating or reproaching to the parents, but just trying to bring in the awareness. The only thing that we can do, and I say this many, many times, we cannot argue what we're doing. We just have to live it, be it, demonstrate it.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
That's all we can
Okay,
do.
thank you.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? Anybody else like to jump on? Just to say, everybody, that you do have that certificate link in the chat box. I'm just going to scroll back up to get it so I can copy it down for you again. I want to say thank you, everybody, for all of your contributions into the chat box. Wow, amazing. And just to encourage all of you to try this out, try this with your learners, try it with any topic. You can even use this for non-grammar. So with non-grammar, you break it down, create your little script, and then take that script through the PACT PQC. And it becomes an amazing space for learning. And by the way, just doing this once, it normally helps to make it stick instantly. People have instant insights. They really do. We're going to close in a minute, everybody. Thank you to all the neurolanguage coaches who are here today. Just want to share before we do that I do think that once you're a coach, once you've gone through this process, this transformation of being a coach, once a coach, always a coach. It's very hard to go back. Very hard. And we are bringing in a new, I'm going to say new dimension of educators. You've got the NeuroHeart Educational Coach, which is bringing in for teachers of any discipline, and language coaches on the other side. I'm thrilled because this month I will be actually 3 days up in Cantabria. Oh, Freza, you've got my book there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. By the way, if you like the book, the Brain Friendly Grammar book, if you like the Neurolanguage Coaching book, may I ask all of you a small favor? If you could go onto Amazon and just give me a little review, that would be fantastic, so that we start getting this out there more and more and more. And you start doing it more and more and more, and you're living it. You know, you are the change. You are the ones who are going to bring the change to everything. And just a quote from the Neurolanguage Coach book, you know, you really become masters in goal setting. You don't tell coaches what to do. You're non-directive. You don't need to demonstrate anything. You sit in that space because your learners are more interactive and they are more active. We are more passive. You are the catalyst, facilitator, the sounding board, but you're structured. You've got a pathway. And you are steering that conversation, but in a very brain-friendly manner. And finally, just to say that our beautiful community of neurolanguage coaches accredited by the ICF, many of them have gone on to become actually life coaches. Donna, I know that you are well on the way there, and one of our life coaches, our professional life coaches as well. And we're creating you know, the community, the like-mindedness of this amazing group. You're all phenomenal. You really are. We do have our conference coming up in Sitges, end of March. So mainly for neurolanguage coaches in development, but if any of you are non-neurolanguage coaches and you want to come and join us, you're always welcome to share the heat, the energy, and the fun of 2.5 days, Sitges, near Barcelona. And that will be our every year place for the Neurolanguage Coaching Conference. And in the summer, June, beginning of June, we will have the online NeuroHeart Education Conference. And that will be open, free to the world, online for everybody. Again, it will be focused on changing education and the way that we are delivering or transferring knowledge. We're going to change teaching to transferring knowledge. So if you are interested, do connect with me for more information, or to any of our neurolanguage coaches. We do have 32 teacher trainers across the world who are delivering neurolanguage coaching, NeuroHeart education in 12 different languages, and more languages coming on this year as well. And everything that we do is accredited by the International Coach Federation. And by the way, beginning of March, we will be launching our academy. So watch this space for that beautiful creation coming out. As I said, I will be in Cantabria with Edu Cantabria, working with the teachers in Cantabria for 20 sessions, 20 hours of accredited teaching. And then if any of you are in Madrid, we will be in Madrid. Gary will be with me in Madrid. And I'm not sure if Elsa will, but in Madrid, Gary will be with me too. We're actually sponsoring TESOL. So we will have a stand. So if any of you want to come and have a chat, we will be there for the 2.5 days of TESOL Madrid. I'll also be talking there. Then I will be in Thessaloniki. If any of you are in Greece and at the IP exhibition, I will be in Thessaloniki on the 19th of March, doing a workshop there. And then at the end of March, I will be with the Neurolanguage Coaches in Sitges. And in Harrogate, IATEFL Harrogate, if any of you are there in April, do come and find me. I will be there. Also with the independent publishers stand, I will be there for those days of the conference as well. It's going to be a busy spring, everybody. But it's a beautiful, beautiful time on Earth. And hopefully we are going to be shaping everything so that we're creating the new way forward, not only for us, but for all of those who are coming after us. Any questions or comments before we close? We've been rolling for an hour and a half. Thank you for your all beautiful comments in the chat box there. Thank you for being with us on a Sunday morning